welcome back to Tri-Edge Radio, and today I'm going to do another book review, Running for My Life, the US Olympic athlete Lopez Lomong. This book is one lost boy's journey from the killing fields of Sudan to the Olympic Games. So when we're caught up in the bubble that is Singapore life, essentially a place of harmony, I really felt like this book brought me back to something very deep, with Lopez Lomong really hitting home reality to how great Singapore is and how safe everything is, and very fulfilling. This book is a really remarkable story about Lopez Lomong, who originated from South Sudan and went through an amazing story to reach his goals. He was brought up in a small town, and at the time there were a lot of rebels in that area, guerrillas, who were essentially going town to town and taking young kids to be part of their, workers. And that's really sad. These boys were actually heading off to church on a Sunday morning and found themselves being pinched out of church by these rebels, and on a rickety truck heading to, they were blindfolded and taken away to what he described as hell on earth. It was essentially a camp set up to break these kids, to take away any dreams or aspirations they had of heading back home to their families. Often, he said, when they first got to this place, they were still in their blindfolds and they were crammed in this small room, and they were not let out for many days. So you can imagine it was just incredibly unhygienic, no clean water, not much food. I think they got food once a day, and essentially the children that had been taken were dying in this place. So it was a very sad start he had, and a lot of these children never got out of this place. However, he was very fortunate. He had a group of friends that in one night they had actually jimmied the door and managed to make a break in the middle of the night, and they ran across the border into Kenya, where there's a big village full of orphan boys. They call them the Lost Boys of Sudan. He had no way of reaching his parents, even knowing if his family was still alive. So his home became now this Lost Boys of Sudan place, and essentially this is what he called home for the next 10-15 years. This place was also, it went from, at least he wasn't a captive now, but the situation wasn't fantastic at the camp either. They were given one meal a day, and then Tuesday, what they called the greatest day of their week, because that was the day the Red Cross truck came. They used to jump into the pit where the Red Cross dumped all their food, and they would fight over one another to try to get a little bit of scraps. Twice a year, they were able to get chicken. So that's quite amazing how little they had, and I guess they survived because the group and the family environment between them all was so strong. That's what held them together in this place. So one of the things that these boys had in this camp, and this is where Lopez really learned how to run, was that they had soccer, and the soccer ball was a wrapped up, essentially piled together garbage made the soccer ball. But some of the older boys took the training session for the younger boys. they had to run around the perimeter of this camp in Kenya that they were allowed to be in. So Lopez said that he would run approximately 30k every day at this training practice before they started their soccer match. So he's doing 30k of running at a young age, 10, 12 years old, every day before they started. And it's not unlike some other stories that I've read and I've done reviews on, such as Chrissy Wellington. You'll often find that the most amazing distance athletes sometime in their development have put together a huge base. And for Lopez, this is certainly true, and he attributes the fact he could transition into international running later in life quite easily because he had this huge base in place from those days where they did the soccer training. So when Lopez was 16, he was able to see if he could find a way out of this Lost Boys of Sudan camp that he lived in, and there was a mission that came, and basically all the boys in the camp had to write a story, and so he couldn't speak English, so he kind of pieced together he told all of his friends he wanted to go to America, and he pieced together a story. He doesn't even know how legible it was, but it got him the scholarship to essentially move to America and to find a home and a family in America. So from the first day that he got off the plane in America, he had absolutely no idea about, you just can't imagine. He had never seen an escalator. He had never seen a toilet. He had never seen so many things that we take for granted. Hot water in the shower. The first week that he was put up in this home, he thought that they didn't have hot water. He was using cold water in the shower. So these were a lot of things and he was so shy, he didn't know how to ask his host mum and host dad at the time, who eventually became his mum and dad. He couldn't ask them for these things. So that was a very sweet moment in the book that he really had to dig deep and believe in himself, and eventually he opened up and he was able to meet some good people. So one of the best things that happened to him was he met a running coach called Joseph, and he was able to go and get a formal education at school. So essentially he went to school, and although he was a long way behind in school, he was able to join the track team. And fortunately for him, in this school that he went to, there was a great track coach who was able to hone his racing strategy and eventually made him an Olympic level runner. So when he started running in these races, he would just take off, and he didn't know little things like the bike that would go ahead of the race. He didn't realize that bike was there to show them where to go. You weren't supposed to race the bike. So his pace judgment was all off. He didn't understand how races worked. And eventually he was taught how to pace himself. And of course, with such a huge running base, these 5K, 10K events were relatively easy for him. He could push very hard. And he obviously was very good very quickly. So Lopez took a number of years through school, but he eventually made it to the Beijing Olympics, and he was at the Beijing Olympics, he was selected to be the flag bearer for America. So it's clear throughout the book, Lopez mentions that he's always had a deeper, bigger purpose in life, and this has helped other Sudanese boys and lost boys to find new homes in America, because obviously that transition completely changed his life. I found it a very touching story of desperation and eventually Olympic glory. And I would definitely suggest anyone interested in an uplifting story, maybe a story of contrast to your own life, if you're living here in Singapore or somewhere else in the world which is safe and comfortable. Definitely a very motivational book. He definitely had a great attitude, and he strove and eventually became an amazing runner. So it's a great story. If you want to read this book, you can see a link below in the description to where the book is on Amazon store, and I hope you get to read Lopez Lomong, Running for My Life.